Thank you, Ms. Vargas. And on our next question, we'll start with you again. This question is, would you work with local, state, and federal leaders, agencies, and elected officials to ensure our community is prepared for sea level rise and to find funds to protect our community from this threat? And you will have 2 minutes for this question. Ms. Vargas.
Well, I've already partially answered this. So absolutely, it's critical. And again, when I was talking earlier about the importance of working regionally, we know particularly when funds are in short supply, or even when there is funding and there is a definite need, the greater and more effective the group that can ask for it, the more unified they are in what they're asking for, the more power behind them in terms of the citizens behind them and their local officials, it really increases the ability to be successful. I'd be very interested in learning more about how federal funds, as for FEMA, could be engaged sooner to plan for this and take the appropriate steps rather than waiting until we have a catastrophe and then have to clean up the mess later. So this is something that we really need to look at. This is not something that might happen in the future. It's going to happen in the future. It's just a matter of how soon and how extreme the results are going to be. So not only in terms of the physical part of actually extending the levees, finding other ways of dealing with the water, but also coming up with a credible disaster plan so that we know what will happen, how agencies are going to work together, and if we do have to evacuate our residents, that we have some kind of a plan put together that is actually then have a couple of trial runs to make sure that it's successful. This is something that I believe is critical, and we really can't ignore it or can't keep pushing it into the future, hoping somehow it's not going to happen, because it will. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vargas.
Okay. What I was going to say is what I wanted to say is that again, in terms of evacuation, the most serious threat to the Bay Area really is earthquake, and sea rise certainly is a more gradual process. But BCDC, in fact, the director goes around and talks to a lot of different service groups, cities, and talks about rising sea level, how it will gradually rise over the next 75 years or so. And we will, in fact, have to do more for, we'll have to, there's an awful lot of property that is at risk. Even the SF International Airport is at risk, and we're going to have to work together with federal authorities on getting the resources to build up to actually cope with that sea level rise. I do not think that it is going to be a sudden thing like in New Orleans. So I would really challenge the notion that it's really lives are at risk and you'd have to evacuate people on a fairly short period of time. I do agree that sea level rise will in fact threaten property, but we're going to have to adopt to or adapt to it pretty much as they've done in other countries. So I did work with FEMA as part of my job, so I do know how FEMA operates. What is really important is being able to work with our federal and state lawmakers, mostly federal lawmakers, because fortunately the state doesn't appear to have any money, and the federal government seems to be able to continue to print it. So we're going to have to go after the federal government to help us cope with some of these changes in our climate. And I know Jackie Spear has come up with some money to do things like bay restoration. So perhaps that could be part of what we do in terms of bay restoration, and at the same time building up some of our levees. I also had lots of experience at working with, because of FEMA and because of some of the floods that we've had in the past caused by El Nino, we had to do lots of work on the levees in East Palo Alto.